a teďka si vezme slovo Anastasia, která studuje kulturu a politiku v Kataru a plánuje si k tomu přidat psychologii jako vedlejší specializaci. Její vášní je porozumět lidem napříč kulturami, jazyky a životními příběhy. Ráda objevuje nová místa a nové přátele a snaží se to přenášet i do výuky jako otevřenost, porozumění a schopnost vytvářet prostor, kde se každý může cítit vnímán a respektován. Aisha nás zavede do tématu psychologie, genderu a identity.
So thank you again to Michal, and now we are gonna give the floor to Anastasia, who will talk about who studies culture and politics in Qatar, and she's also planning to add psychology as a minor. And her passion is to understand people across cultures and across different languages and life stories. She loves to discover new places and new views on things, and that she brings these abilities also to her lessons, this openness, understanding, and the ability to create an atmosphere where each person can feel heard and understood and respected. And Anastasia will now lead us to the topic of psychology, gender, and identity, which is a sensitive but very important topic, and we are excited for her views.
Hi, thank you so much for the introduction. That's so sweet. I'm gonna share my slides now. Let me know if you guys can see them. Oops, wait, wrong slide. Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Perfect. So as I was already introduced twice, I'm just gonna quickly repeat the same thing. Hi, everyone. My name is Anastasia. I am from Minsk, Belarus. And as already was mentioned, I am very passionate about learning new languages. I really enjoy exploring new cultures. I also absolutely love taking pictures and posting them on Instagram and in general blogging. I love traveling, and maybe that's part of the reason why I'm an international student and I'm traveling the world. I really love listening to music from different countries, different regions, and I love immersing myself in different cultures and vibes and everything. And I absolutely enjoy and love meeting new people, which is why I'm really excited to introduce myself here and hopefully meet some new friends. So who am I? I am a junior, which is a third-year student at Georgetown University campus in Qatar. As again already mentioned, I'm a major in culture and politics. I'm planning to minor in psychology. My major may sound confusing, but it's more about politics, but it's also about understanding people, seeing how we are all connected and how we're different, and understanding each other better, and kind of detangling all the issues of the past and hoping to build a better future. And I have been an international student for the last 4+ years. I have completed high school in Georgia with many of the presenters here. And that's how my journey as an international student started. And I'm really grateful to every single person I have met so far, because these people are the reason I am who I am right now. And they are the reason I found my passion in learning about people, because every single time I talked to my classmates in Georgia, for example, I learned something new and something I have never thought of before. So I'm really grateful to everyone who's here and who's not here today. But yeah, they are the reason I am who I am. Moving on, what lessons with me look like. I mostly teach English, and I truly believe that the best way to learn is through dialogue and real practice, which is basically the motto of the whole organization. We're united in this idea. Generally, I just follow the flow of the ideas that my students have. We can talk about whatever fun or interesting happened during your day, or if there is something that's on your mind and you want to share it with me. We can talk about your hobbies, your dreams, your future plans, anything that comes to your mind. We can talk about your childhood stories, favorite TV shows, drama, music, books, literally anything that comes to your mind. And it doesn't matter to me what you choose to speak. What matters is that you're interested in what you're talking about. And as the conversation flows, you're learning through what you're actually enjoying. And that way your memory actually processes the information better, and you're becoming a more successful student and learner. The general structure for my lessons is we start with catching up. I really like to establish a rapport with my students, and I think it's important that we check in with each other and make sure that we're on the same page, that everyone is feeling great, or if you're not, we can talk about that. And then we will probably move on to some topic that you would like as a student to focus on. I may ask more open-ended questions about a certain topic, but we don't have to focus on them. And it's always up to the student if we want to spice things up, change something. It doesn't matter. We don't have to stick to the same thing. What matters is that you're interested in what we're talking about. However, sometimes there might be interactive slides or something that I will pre-prepare in advance. If, for example, in previous session, we talked about something and I thought that it would be a good idea to bring it up again in the next lesson, but it's never boring, it's never rigid, and again, it's very flexible. And my main priority is that my students have fun with me, and it's never boring because that's what kills the mood and doesn't help you learn. And an important thing to remember is that we're here to improve together, and I know that everyone learns differently, and I will always be there to adapt for my students, and we will search for what works best for everyone. That said, I believe in the importance of correcting your mistakes, and again, I will always find a way to approach everyone, but I will gently correct the mistakes if there are any, and I will help you reflect on your mistakes because progress is what matters, and that's why we're here. And now, one more thing before I move on to the mini lesson that I pre-planned. I just want to remind you guys that I also am a student and I know what it's like to be a student, so I'm always on your side. I have 2+ years of tutoring experience, which is a lot for a 20-year-old. And I'm fun. I hope you can tell by my presentation. I believe that being fun and chill in lesson is what makes you learn best. So that's why I try to bring that energy to every lesson. But just because I'm fun doesn't mean that I don't take my lessons seriously. So I always make sure that I'm prepared. I'm always fully present and attuned to my students, and you guys are my main priority. And moving on to the mini lesson sample, as Simona mentioned, I would like to focus on the topic of gender studies. For example, if a student comes to the lesson and they bring up something that happened or something they have read and it's related to, for example, the issue of gender studies, we could start by talking about the issue in general. Do you think gender inequality exists, for example? We can discuss opinions and personal experiences. Again, I know that there are personal preferences, opinions, and borders. We are all very respectful and polite here. We are taking each other's feelings into consideration. However, it is important to talk about these things, and it's important to be able to discuss them and express your ideas freely. We can define inequality in general and talk about sexism in particular, and then, as it's my area of interest, we could move on potentially into discussing research, for example, talking about writers or researchers that you may know or I may tell about. We can talk about where it comes from. For example, after we discussed research, we can dive into more daily life experiences, and that's how you also practice different areas of vocabulary related to the same topic, for example. We can talk about gender socialization and unconscious and conscious stereotypes, and that also goes back to both politics and psychology. So see how I always connect everything together. And I think that what's important is that we not only focus on the theoretical part, but also bring our own perspectives and ideas into our lessons. So I think it's important that we focus on what we think we can do about issues that we're discussing. For example, what can we do about fixing the gender gap, for example? Is it even possible to make a change? Should we do it, or should we leave the things as they are? We can discuss potential solutions. We can discuss personal and global implications, and all of that will again bring you to think about your opinion and learning how to express it in English, or practicing expressing it in a way that you're comfortable in, because topics like that are not always easy to discuss, and it's important that we learn to communicate with each other, especially it may be difficult in a second language. And once again, I know what it feels like, and I'm always there to help you. I'm always there to support you. And I know that everyone learns differently, and for some people, it's better to have a more chill, relaxed lesson, and for some people, it's better to have intense, edge-cutting experience because that's how they're staying stimulated. So I would like to ask you guys to think about what kind of learners you are and what approach is more motivating for you, what makes it easier for you to study. For example, I prefer to always be awake and motivated and like always rushing somewhere, but I know it depends. So if you could maybe text in the chat or just keep it in mind, because that's when you understand the way you learn better, it helps you follow your goals and focus on your progress. And well, yeah, that's what matters here. So I want you to think about that question. And thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, everyone, for listening to me. And if there are any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Thank you very much for the presentation. It was really interesting. I wanted to ask why you believe that conversation and dialogue are the best ways to learn a language.
I think it's because, well, there is a psychological reasoning behind it. There is like a scientific proof that when you're interested in the topic, when you're engaged actively in the dialogue, and when you're talking about something that matters to you, your memory works better and you don't need to put actual effort into memorizing something. You're just there in the moment and your brain naturally processes the information it gets because you're interested. And well, you can learn something by sitting and studying it by heart, but it's always more enjoyable to learn it the fun way because, well, it makes it easier and more fun.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. And I also wanted to ask, what do you enjoy most about being like an international student in Qatar and studying culture and politics?
I love the emotional roller coaster that happens to me every single day. I came from a very different background and I definitely had lots of ups and downs in terms of getting familiar with a culture that's completely unknown to me, a religion that's completely different from mine, the surrounding that is very different. But it's all every single day is different. I never meet the same people. I always encounter someone new and I always learn something new. And there hasn't been a day that I didn't learn something about Muslim countries or climate that's very different from mine. And I think it's fun because it makes your life active and interesting and you feel like you're actually living and breathing every single day. And that's what I enjoy.
So yeah, it sounds really good. It sounds like basically you feel alive. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's all from me for the questions.